Class ended in 10 minutes, and that didn't leave me with much time to prepare. The first order of business were those pesky gait recognition cameras. Like I said, they'd started out as face recognition cameras, but those have been ruled unconstitutional. As far as I know, no court has yet determined whether these gait cams are any more legal, but until they do, we're stuck with them. Gait, G-A-I-T, is a fancy word for the way you walk. People are pretty good at spotting gaits. Next time you're on a camping trip, check out the bobbing of the flashlight as a distant friend approaches you. Chances are you can identify them just from the movement of the light, the characteristic way it bobs up and down that tells our monkey brains, this is a person approaching us. Gait recognition software takes pictures of your motion, tries to isolate you in the pics as a silhouette, and then tries to match the silhouette to a database to see if it knows who you are. It's a biometric identifier, like fingerprints or retina scans, but it's got a lot more collisions than either of those. A biometric collision is when a measurement matches more than one person. Only you have your fingerprint, but you share your gait with plenty of other people. Not exactly, of course. Your personal inch-by-inch walk is yours and yours alone. The problem is your inch-by-inch walk changes based on how tired you are, what the floor is made of, whether you pulled your ankle playing basketball, and whether you've changed your shoes lately. So the system kind of fuzzes out your profile, looking for people who walk kind of like you. There are a lot of people who walk kind of like you. What's more, it's easy not to walk kind of like you. Just take one shoe off. Of course, you'll always walk like you with one shoe off in that case, so the cameras will eventually figure out that it's still you. Which is why I prefer to inject a little randomness into my attacks on gait recognition. I put a handful of gravel into each shoe, cheap and effective, and no two steps are the same. Plus, you get a great reflexology foot massage in the process. I'm kidding. Reflexology is about as scientifically useful as gait recognition. The cameras used to set off an alarm every time someone they didn't recognize stopped into campus. This did not work. The alarm went off every 10 minutes when the mailman came by, when a parent dropped in, when the grounds people went to work fixing up the basketball court, when a student showed up wearing new shoes. So now it just tries to keep track of who's where and when. If someone leaves by the school gates during classes, their gait is checked to see if it kinda sorta matches any student gait, and if it does, whoop whoop whoop, ring the alarm. Chavez High is ringed with gravel walkways. I like to keep a couple handful of rocks in my shoulder bag, just in case. I silently passed Daryl 10 or 15 pointy little rocks, and we both loaded our shoes. Class was about to finish up, and I realized that I still hadn't checked the Harajuku Fun Madness site to see where the next clue was. I'd been a little hyper-focused on the escape and hadn't bothered to figure out where we were escaping to. I turned my school book, like a Chromebook, right, and hit the keyboard. The web browser we used was supplied with the machine. It was a locked-down spyware version of Internet Explorer, Microsoft's lousy crashware that no one under the age of 40 used voluntarily. I had a copy of Mozilla Firefox on the USB drive built into my watch, but that wasn't enough. The schoolbook ran Windows Vista for Schools, an antique operating system designed to give school administrators the illusion that they controlled the programs their students could run. But Vista for Schools is its own worst enemy. There are a lot of programs that Vista for Schools doesn't want you to be able to shut down. Keyloggers, censorware, programs that let the administration see what you're doing on your computer. And these programs run in a special mode that makes them invisible to the system. You can't quit them because you can't even see they're there. Any program whose name starts with $SYS$ is invisible to the operating system. It doesn't show up on listings of the hard drive, nor in the process monitor. So my copy of Mozilla Firefox was called $SYS$ Firefox, and as I launched it, it became invisible to Windows, and so invisible to the network's snoopware. Now I had an Indie browser running. I needed an Indie network connection. The school's network logged every click in and out of the system, which was bad news if you were planning on surfing over to the Harajuku Fun Madness site for some extracurricular fun. The answer is something ingenious called Tor, Tor, the onion router. An onion router is an internet site that takes requests for web pages and passes them on to other onion routers and on to other onion routers until one of them finally decides to fetch the page and pass it back through the layers of the onion until it reaches you. The traffic to the onion routers is encrypted, which means that the school can't see what you're asking for, and the layers of the onion don't know who they're working for. There are millions of nodes. The program was set up by the U.S. Office of Naval Research to help people get around the censorware in countries like Syria and China, which means that it's perfectly designed for operating in the confines of an average American high school. Tor works because the school has a finite blacklist of naughty addresses we aren't allowed to visit, and the addresses of the nodes change all the time. No way could the school keep track of them all. Mozilla Firefox and Tor together made me into the invisible man, impervious to the Board of Education snooping, free to check out the Harajuku Fun Madness site and see what was up. There it was. A new clue. Like all Harajuku Fun Madness clues, it has a physical, online, and a mental component. The online component was a puzzle you had to solve, one that required you to research the answers to a bunch of obscure questions. This batch included a bunch of questions on the plots of doujinshi. Those are comic books drawn by fans of manga, Japanese comics. They can be as big as the official comics that inspire them, but they're a lot weirder. Crossover storylines, and sometimes really silly songs and action. Lots of love stories, of course. Everyone loves to see their favorite tunes fall in love. I'd have to solve those riddles later when I got home. They were easiest to solve with the whole team, downloading tons of doujinshi files and scouring them for answers to the puzzles. I just finished scrapbooking all the clues when the bell rang and we began our escape. I surreptitiously slid the gravel down the side of my short boots, ankle-high Blundstones from Australia, great for running and climbing, and the easy slip-on, slip-off, laceless design makes them convenient at the never-ending metal detectors that are everywhere now. We also had to evade physical surveillance, of course, but that gets easier every time they add a new layer of physical snoopery. All the bells and whistles, security theater, lull our beloved faculty into a totally false sense of security. We surfed the crowd down the hallways, heading for my favorite side exit. We were halfway along when Daryl hissed, "Crap! I forgot! I've got a library book in my bag!" "You're kidding me!" I said, and hauled him into the next bathroom we passed. Library books are bad news. Every one of them has an RFID, that stands for RFID, radio frequency ID tag, glued into its binding, which makes it possible for the librarians to check out the books by waving them over a reader, and lets a library shelf tell you if any of the books on it are out of place. But it also lets the school track where you are at all times. It was another of those legal loopholes. The courts wouldn't let the schools track us with RFIDs, but they could track library books and use the school records to tell them who was likely to be carrying which library book. I had a little Faraday pouch in my bag. These are little wallets lined with a mesh of copper wires that effectively block radio energy, silencing RFIDs. But the pouches were made for neutralizing ID cards and toll booth transponders, not books like Introduction to Physics, I groaned. The book was the size